Hi everyone. Welcome to a special MyWatches podcast, episode 18. And what we have today, as you can see from the screen, we're going to do a Dietrich SD-2 review, right? Before that, first thing first, wish wash chat, right? So what I have with me, my Snowflake, SBGA001 on the back on the bracelet, which I haven't been for a long time. All right, next.
I guess I can go next. So I'm having the Ming 1709 with a deluxe brown strap. Really like it, and still waiting for my new watch to come back from the service center.
Yeah, I can go next. In the spirit of this particular podcast, I have the SD1 on my wrist, although the SD2 is actually with me right now, but it seemed appropriate that I wear the one I actually own.
Awesome.
I'll go next. I'm wearing my
Speedy.
Helios fairway.
Oh, Helios, nice.
Still in the honeymoon phase.
Nice.
Very nice.
So did you utilize the quick adjustment?
No, because it's like at the limits, right? So I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Just don't accidentally slide it across the table this time.
yeah. I won't.
All right, team.
I'm wearing my Master 300 300M Pro. It's been a while since I wore it, so I'm wearing it today.
A little bit higher, team.
Oh, there we go.
Awesome. Cool. All right. All right. So I think first thing first, we're going to go through the spec sheet, right, directly on the website. So what we have here, it's a 8.5 milliliter case, 12.6 mm height, 20 millimeter lug width, and 46.2 millimeter lug to lug, right? You have a sandwich dial construction over here, a unidirectional bezel, a sapphire glass, and I think a Celita SW200 movement. And it comes with a NATO strap, right? So that is a very quick run through of the watch.
Strap, you mean?
What did I say?
NATO.
Oh, sorry. Oh, it's black NATO textile. It comes with a NATO and a rubber strap. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, does it come with NATO as well?
Yeah, that's what on the website. Yeah. Black
okay.
NATO textile and a blue rubber strap for the blue variant. So it comes with two straps, right? So that's that. And then in terms of just jumping next into the comparisons between SD1 and SD2, because I believe that is what's going on most people's mind, right, when they talk about the SD2. So jumping straight into that, we have, by the way, pictures are provided by Woody, amazing photographer as always. And over here is Woody's SD1 in green, the normal exclusive. And this is the SD2 in blue. Both are fitted in the respective rubber strap. And I think the major change over here is going to be several things that you can already spot. It's the bezel, it's different material, sapphire versus aluminum. And you have the, what do you call this again? The floating dial, or?
Yeah, it's basically a printed, a loom printed sapphire dial, which therefore reflects a bit of light as a result. And it's got a bit of fume going on it as well. I think it's like a gradient dial.
Yep. And a sandwich dial for the SD2. And you see a missing date column in the 6 o'clock as well, where it's missing over here, right? So
exactly the same case size, right?
Exactly the same movement and all, right?
Same case height and all that.
Yeah.
Although in person, I think the next picture will show it. What you have actually is, so I'll describe it like that because it's hard to visualize without, right? The SD2 actually has got a curved, a dome sapphire that feels like one construction to the aluminium bezel. So it's a one flowing feeling if you touch it across, right? Whereas the SD1 feels like the bezel is slightly higher. So it's got a flat crystal and it's got a raised bezel, sapphire bezel.
Right.
Yeah, but in terms of overall height, thickness, and width, all are the same.
Yeah, can definitely spot that the
Yeah.
the bezel in your picture versus the aluminum.
So this SD1 bezel wood is like a 50 fathoms style, right?
It's almost like a 50 fathom style, correct?
Okay.
Right. And I think the interesting thing that Woody and Hans spotted as well is that it's an unmodified movement, right? So the date mechanism is still there.
Yes, it's a
So
little
that is
movement, but it's a date mechanism still there, correct?
Yeah, so that is it's a little bit interesting.
There's a ghost state basically.
Yeah, there's a ghost state. Yeah, it's very much similar to like what Young Hans does as well. You know, they use ETA movements or Celita movements, and then you still have the date, even though it's a no date watch. But you just skip past that, I guess. You know, as you're working through it.
Right. So this is another view of the comparisons for the crystal and also the bezel.
Yep.
And the back are the same. Both rubber strap are the same as well, with those ridges that allow some breathability and ventilation. Those are identical. The next thing that is we need to shout out is that there's no bracelet provided in the SD2, right? So this is Woody's SD1 bracelet fitted into the SD2, and this is how it will look like if using the SD1 bracelet. However, as mentioned, there's only a NATO and rubber strap provided this time around versus a bracelet and rubber strap provided previously in SD1.
Yeah.
Can you buy the bracelets separately?
Not at this stage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think one other worthy point here is about the loom pots, right? Between the SD1 and SD2.
Yeah.
Where in the SD1 you get basically just the outline of the I want to say the plot, the marker. Whereas in the SD2 you get the full marker being loomed. And it's kind of like recessed below the main dial, I want to say. So you get a nice 3D effect and a larger loom plot, which gives you an overall better readability, as you can see here, right? So I think,
But I think the other thing is also the bezel loom is different. So the SD1 actually has got all the loom plots sort of there, but it's quite hard to see. Whereas in the SD2, what is there is a very clear green plot at 12, which I think for someone like Tim, you're a diver, you would know what that has got more use as it is as well. But that's a nuance that's there too.
So SD1, the bezel plots are all loomed.
It's all kind of loom, but it's very faded, as you can see here, right? It's a bit hard to spot. Yeah.
The SD2
the same
loom seems
color.
better.
Yeah.
I guess the contrast between the green and blue helps a lot in the actual diving application.
Yeah.
All right, and then I think the last point in terms of the comparison then would be the big question, right? Is the price, right? What is the price between these two? And one is that SD1, at least what we can see on the website, it's $1050 versus the SD2, which is 1150, which is $100 increase versus for the SD2 versus SD1.
Well, I guess we kind of need to talk about the availability as well, right? I'm not sure whether the SD1, I think the green you can still get from Normon. I'm not sure about the blue and black. Do you guys know whether you can still get it at the price?
I think it's been discontinued already.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So no, SD1 is no longer available. Only leftover stock of the green variant. The normal green variant that is also a Normon exclusive. It's still currently, as of now, 23rd of June, still available, right? All right. So that is a very, very quick run through of the spec sheet and also a very quick run through of the higher level comparison, and then now we will deep dive into our thoughts and opinion for each one of us for the SD2, right?
I think
so
I think we missed out the flat lux as well as one of the key features.
I mean, that is standard for both, right? Which is
yeah.
Over here is what Han is trying to mention, is that because all the case design that is flat at the lux, which any strap that you've put in there, it's make it very seamless, right? When example, if you go back to the rubber strap, if you put a leather, you put any particular strap here as well, it does not have the gaps. Like
it becomes an
normal
integrated
watches.
watch straight away.
Yeah. Even with like straight end link bracelets from shops like Strapcoat, right? They do have like oyster bracelets that's flat end, so that could really transform this watch. And I think based on the aesthetics, that might be a go-to, right?
Yeah, so that is definitely a plus point, and applies to both SD1 and SD2 as well. Definitely. Right.
It's a beautiful shot of the dome bezel. I mean the dome sapphire glass.
Yeah. All right. So as I mentioned, we're going to deep dive into our individual opinion right now for the SD2, and add a little bit of context to that. Han, Woody, and Renee all three of them have all seen it in person last week, and they have taken a very close inspection of the watch. I was looped into the conversation, but I was not there physically. And Tim has probably the least exposure of the SD2 among all of us, right? So I think we'll leave it to that based on the existing information and existing photos. We'll leave it to Tim to kickstart giving his opinion, right? So without us influencing his thoughts. So over to you, Tim. What are your thoughts about the watch?
To be honest, when I first saw it, it reminded me of the Tudor Blackberry 58 blue. That was the first thing that came to mind, actually.
Really?
Because the blue, I may be wrong, but the blue looks very similar. But comparing it to the SD1, to be honest, I am more drawn to the design of the SD2. I feel it's much more cleaner. And the sandwich dial, it's kind of interesting, the evolution, because I think Woody, you mentioned earlier on, the SD1 with the sapphire bezel, the profile is raised towards the top, whereas with this sandwich dial, the profile is raised. There's depth up basically to the dial, so it's very different. And I believe the dial is a matte dial, right? In some picture, it looks like it's a sunburst, but I believe it's a matte dial.
It's matte. Yeah.
I mean, if you ask me, I think I gravitate more to the SD2. Although when I handled your SD1 few months ago, it was really a nice package, but I don't know, I still don't see myself owning it. But my biggest question is, how is the bezel action of the SD2?
It's the same as the SD1. No
so
change.
it's
the same.
You still need to SD40 it.
WD-40.
WD-40, yeah.
It's very clicky. It's the same. So I can do both right now. It's the same.
It's 120 clicks, right?
Yeah. Correct.
To give context to, I think for those who are listening or watching, we feel that the bezel action could be smoother, right? That is our opinion. Yeah.
Yep.
Hence why Tim was asking about that.
Yeah. But I think overall, it's a really good looking watch. Price point wise, I know they gave an extra strap, but I think what I really like about the SD1 was the bracelet. The bracelet was really, really good. And it looks good. It looks different.
Yeah.
So it's a shame that they don't include that in the SD2 package, and it's $100 more expensive. I mean, granted, there's the scrap, but I thought it would be a much more value.
And I think that the shape of the links on the bracelet is also kind of synonymous with some of their older case designs, right? So that's kind of like a novelty thing. At least I think so. So yeah, it's kind of a shame.
So with that being said, right, team, like you mentioned, like you prefer the SD2, but you're disappointed in the lack of the bracelet and so on. And with the $100 increase in price, if you have to pick one gun to your head, are you still going with the SD2?
Good question. If gun to my head, yeah, I think I would still go with the SD2.
Nice.
SD2.
Okay.
Even without the bracelet lah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I mean, the cons is no bracelet, the ghost date. I think these are the top two.
Okay.
Would have been nicer if the bezel action was better, but
Okay.
can't have everything, I suppose.
Right. Okay. All right. Perhaps I'll go next, because then it will be, for me, it's like because I haven't seen the watch physically as well. So before I pass it to the other three, so my thoughts is very similar to team as well, right? Just looking at this first glance, I just like the SD2 look so much better, right? Everything is just I would say, lack of better words, more visible. In a way, you can put it in a way more refined, right? In that case, and I personally like the matte look over glossy look as well, right? Even talking about watches with ceramic or aluminum bezel, I am very much a fan of aluminum, right? I personally feel that the aluminum bezel gives a more, how to say, solid or slash vibrant color through that output, right? Versus something that is sapphire or ceramic. This is why I always like aluminum bezel. So for me, it's like aluminum bezel, matte ceramic, then sapphire. That's how I would rate based on my personal preference. All right. Yeah. So the sandwich style, to me, I think is a lot cleaner as well. I do think that it can have a little bit more flair. It could be sandwich, but still have that sunburst effect. That would be my preference. Instead of being a little bit too plain at the moment, lack of better words. But overall, just comparing to SD1 and SD2, I like the look a lot more, right? I think it's more refined. The date, lack of the date, it's, for me, it's not a con. I never like dates on the watch. To me, it just looks so much better. It's more symmetric. It looks good, lah, right? But same thing with team as well. I think that the lack of bracelet is very, very disappointing, right? Especially with the hike in price. Yeah, so I think that it is, yeah, just look at this two picture. The bracelet with a bracelet just looks so much better, in my opinion. And I'm personally a bracelet guy, and I don't like using rubber as well, right?
Which is kind of a
Don't take
shame.
that. Don't quote that out of context, by the way. I just thought after I said that, right?
Too late.
But yeah. So I mean, even if it's a matter of cost and so on, I think instead of giving that NATO strap, you can do with a simpler bracelet or something like that. Right? I think that could be done. Yeah. But I would just like to highlight the point as well. Is that if someone that is interested in the SD2 and the main drawback for that person is the price, I would say it's quite hard to fault Dietrich as well for pricing it that way. If you look at it first glance, yes, you will say that on paper you're losing out, but how I see it as well is that rather than you're losing out, is that the SD1 was priced very, very cheap versus the SD2 was priced expensive. So just looking at the price itself, without looking at SD1 price, comparing it into other brands and so on, I think it's still decently priced, right, in that context. So if you get an SD1 and you get the bracelet and other goodies that comes with it, that is a bonus rather than the SD2, it's being overpriced. So that's how I see it. Yeah. So that I think that basically wraps up my
Nice.
opinion for this.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'll go next after James. Okay, so I've seen this in person. I've seen both in person with together with Harn and Woody. Is it okay, James, if you put it back to the comparison screen? Okay, so seeing these two watches for SD1, I only saw the green one, which is Woody's one. And for the SD2, I think it's the only color for now, right? Or they also have
Blue
black.
and black.
Black.
Blue and
SD2,
black.
yeah,
Okay,
blue
but
and black.
comparing these two colors, I'll also go with SD2, same as James and Tim. The reason behind it is because yeah, it's a lot more mature. It looks like it for me it looks more timeless, and for that sapphire sandwich, you don't see that in a lot of watches. And what other brands do have this at this price point? It reminds me of my Panerai days when I fell in love with the sandwich dial. But comparing these two as well, it just reminds me of like a Japanese watch and a traditional Swiss watch as well, right? Because the SD1 is like more playful, right? And the SD2 is more mature. So I think it depends on the person's taste as well. But if the SD1 was released in yellow, I think I'll choose the SD1 with this style.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So in terms of the bracelet, I don't really feel sad about the loss. I mean, the loss of bracelet, even though I know it's more. I mean, it will be a complete package if they send a bracelet. But I personally would wear the blue strap with the SD2 if I would buy this.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so basically, given the difference in price point, you still go with the SD2.
Yes, yep. Because I like the look of the rubber strap. It looks integrated to the watch itself.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So maybe I'll go next because Woody's seen the watch the longest and has been having it on hand the most. So probably it's better for him to go last. So I think looking at this in person as well, I think it's a very deliberate choice of design that Dietrich went with the SD2 after the SD1. And with that being said, what I mean is that the SD2 is built for form and function as a diver, and it looks like it will function very well as a diver. So I will summarize by saying that if you were someone who was looking for a diver, or you do not have a diver in your collection, and you want something that is of a value price point that you can kind of beat around, because you wouldn't do that with let's say a more luxurious a brand like a Tudor. Maybe some people are more, even though it's a diver, they might be a bit worried to take it to the beach, get sand in it, stuff like that, right? So this one might fill that spot for you. But yeah, and then the SD1, I would say, kind of speaks more to someone who wants a little bit more fun, a bit more bell and whistle, I would say, and having a little more fun with the design, like a sports car, right? So it kind of seems like it's being targeted at two different types of demographic, or rather, because the SD2 came after the SD1, they kind of evolved and decided that, hey, this is the demographic that we want to appeal towards. But with that being said, because at least personally for me, I would go with the SD1 because I already have a diver that I kind of feel like it's my beater diver in my collection, and out of the two, I would go for something a bit more fun, something a bit more left field, something a bit more, let's say, a bit more special, right? And I think the SD1 is something that's a bit more special. And of course, with the bracelet as well, absolutely love it. I think it's one of the main selling points for me, at least, with the design, which is synonymous to the brand, I would say. Based on the reason I mentioned earlier, that it's kind of a callback to their original case designs as well. So for me, the bracelet is something that it's a plus point, a big plus point for me for the brand. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
All right. So I think the way I'll look at it is I'll probably be a little bit surprisingly biased because I do own the SD1 with my own money, right? And I happen to have hands-on with the SD2. Now, I look at these two watches very strangely compared to everyone else, only because I have the most time with it. I'll be very honest, the first time I got it, right, I looked at it like a watch geek. And I was like, oh no, the feature's gone. You know, it's like, that was my first initial reaction, right? Because I bought this first SD1 for all of the bells and whistles, because I really loved the fact that it came with all the bells and whistles. So when the SD2 came, I was a bit taken aback. But then when I allowed it to digest a little bit more, I saw it for what it was. And here's how the analogy I'll give. The first one feels like a concept car you could buy off the showroom floor. It's not really the watch you would want to buy for your day-to-day driving. It's really for that fun factor. It's got stuff that no one really needs. You know, it's like a gradient dial and a dive watch, not really practical. Loom plots that are hard to read, not practical either. The wonderful look of a bracelet really appeals as a design object, but in truth, all of us having many different experience, many different dive watches, right? You want something that works at the end of the day, like an oyster bracelet sort of thing, or something that just can take the beating that you need to, right? But as a design object, the first SD1 works that way. But the SD2 seems like the commercial car you can now buy off the showroom floor versus the concept car that you could, right? So it has a bit more refinement to what it was designed to do. So it's got a lot more legible. It's a lot easier to see as well. It's a much cleaner design. At one glance, I mean, even my own better half looked at both and said, it's the new one's nicer than yours. And I was like, okay, point taken, right? The design just works a lot more cohesively. And I think all you guys are right. It appeals to a very different demographic. But I think the thing that is a challenge to all of us here, if I may say, right, is we are all watch nerds and watch geeks in one way or form. And because of that, we always gravitate to a full package versus always wanting everything there, right? I think that the reality of the matter is this watch at its price point is hard to beat on either model, right? For the design that's gone in, even that rubber strap, for all jokes, even though James isn't a fan of rubber, right? Even that is not something that you can find off the market because it's purposely designed for it. Those motifs, right, are also part of the design. So it's purposely designed for that as well. I think it's very hard to find a package that's uniquely designed the way it is. If you ask me to pick, obviously I picked my own money already, right? Then I picked the SD1. I would still do that again because I'm just a bit left field all the time. But I actually think that if someone's going to look for a uniquely designed dive watch that they really want to take, and I don't even dive, so I think the most equipped to answer that would actually be Tim. The SD2 works so much better for someone actually wanting a 2 watch. I do also think that if you're into customization, that the fact that it's a straight lug actually allows you to probably go wild, right? You can get a leather bracelet, you can get an oyster bracelet, you can get a beads of rice, and it will all fit really, really nicely and you don't even have to look for a custom to your watch sort of thing. And I think that's a great thing. So it's a bit complicated in that sense that I think for me, I would still like the SD1 as a design object. But if you told me to tell you which one to buy if you're getting it as a dive watch, right, I would say the SD2 wins any day of the week. It's a shame of the price, but I also agree with what James said, that the first one was so amazingly priced, and that's what it was. It's almost like, I feel they should have gone at it more like a Kickstarter campaign, right? Where you remember any Kickstarter campaign, if you are the first there, you get it much cheaper, right? And then when the next iteration comes, you just expect you're going to pay that regular price already. And that's kind of what has happened here without the marketing, right? But that's how I think about these watches. I don't know if you guys feel any different about these views.
Yeah, I think maybe I have a question, right? So you mentioned that your first knee-jerk reaction as a watch geek was that, oh no, I'm losing all these bells and whistles. And I think for myself, I feel like I had that reaction as well, right? So do you think that, number one, will the general public also have that without having to see the watch in person, right? And actually, and ultimately, if the answer is yes, then is that a shame, right? Because it seems like they have made some deliberate decisions. And if I have not been able to see the watch in person, I might have not have catch on those deliberate cues.
It's a fair point. And I think the best analogy in the watch world I could give, and this is also speaking to watch geeks, right, is what your feelings are going from a Pelagos to a Pelagos FXD, right? Two with the same name, but very different demographic as well, right? The shape's very different. The features, some have been taken away. But there is a huge group of people, I think, James, you met one today as well, that wants a watch like that, right? I think it is really a different demographic. It's just that, unfortunately, the challenge here is it is a polarizing thing. It's usually quite rare that this happens where you go from a V1 to a V2, right? And it polarizes straight away. This is really, there's one for you on each side, right? Normally, it's always get the latest one. That's the tech geek in me saying, right? If you get the latest version of it. But in this case, it's almost like you could almost have both watches side by side and different people will buy the different one.
I think my point over there is I think, like I mentioned, don't stuck or don't have that don't be planted in that comparison, right? I would say just view it as the spec itself without looking at the price and choose which one you want, right? Because honestly, at first as well, I got a little bit influenced by the price. I mean, like, oh man, I'm going to pay more with a lack of bracelet and stuff like that. But if I look at it, do you really want to? I mean, if your mind, if like, for example, in my mind, I've really set and built, come to the conclusion that the SD2 looks way better than SD1, in my opinion. Do I really want to just settle for SD1 just because I get that extra bracelet and so on, right? And it's not, like I mentioned as well, it's not a exact fair comparison as well, because what you get in the SD1 is a bonus. With that being said, I think you mentioned a very good point between a concept car and a retail-ready product, which is the SD2. So I feel that perhaps the marketing side of things, Dietrich will probably work as a, maybe if they can do it again, I would personally recommend that the SD1 should be worked as a, say, Skin Diver early bird edition or something, a Skin Diver concept. And then this, in fact, the SD2 is supposed to be the actual SD1, which is released for retail consumers and so on, right? So I would say just don't get stuck on that comparison where you look at, oh, I'm missing out in this and that and so on. I mean, if you are, like I mentioned, there's still stock available for the green at Normon. Go ahead and buy that. If not, the SD2 is here for you.
Yeah, I think the sad thing is that not everyone will have the opportunity like us to see the watch in person, right? And I think a lot of us have all the nice things to say about it, also because we have the opportunity to put it side by side, and then we call it for what it is, and it is a great dive watch. Yeah, so I feel like maybe for those that are not so fortunate to be able to see in person, maybe they just look at it and they kind of get put off due to just like a very rough comparison that they do with the old one, and just go like, oh no, I'm getting less for having to pay more, right?
Yeah, I think the reality is, having taken that picture of the bracelet on the SD2, right? And if I had to pick all over again, actually a part of me is going like, actually that one looks really, really good. That combination.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I think Tim is also correct that I didn't think of it that way. That the blue really, really does look like the 58 blue under certain light.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that. One thing you gotta. Be aware of as well. The SD1 was released a year ago, and watch prices were constantly increasing anyways, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
correct.
Looking at other watches and so on. So you can't really compare against last year's prices for one. And as mentioned as well, just take the SD2 as its own, compare it with any other watches that you can get existingly available to you and compare against other watches instead, rather than looking at the past, which is technically the SD1's already been discontinued anyway. So it's not exactly a fair comparison over there. And I think we previously spoke about this off the podcast as well, that a good comparison here would be to look at what Grand Seiko is doing, right? Grand Seiko has been releasing tons of watches lately, and if you do a comparison between what the newer models versus the older models, there were several models as well that were released with less features and cost way more than just a 10% hike, right? And people are still buying those. So
Yeah, I don't know the answer to this question, but I so start to wonder now that with that comparison, right? So like a brand like Ming, how did the 1706 compare to the 1709 in terms of price, and also was it the same movement, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure of the answer.
I can tell you factually that the price has always gone up. And because I'm known as the guy that always bashes on a particular brand, I'll give you one example to think about as well, right? A black Submariner and a green bezel Submariner. Do you think they're the same price? Is a paint job really worth that much more?
No, yeah, agreed. I think, right now, given that the SD1 is no longer available, I mean, to future buyers, there really isn't a choice unless, they want the green one and normal one. But what I'm more curious is, let's say, assuming Dietrich have both models, right? And then it is a choice. And put it this way, what if the SD2 comes in bracelet, SD1 comes in bracelet, but the SD1 is more expensive than the SD2? Would that change anything? Or
Actually,
maybe the other way around?
Actually, it's a good point to ponder, really. Because I think it could work that way. And it will make even, I would say the SD2 becomes a more attractive proposition as well, right? So for me, I think the thing that maybe should be considered by the brand is, what I am taking away from this is, if we could have the bracelet as an option, or even other bracelets as an option, right? I know a brand that does exactly this, Nevada. Actually, when you go to their website, you can buy it on their default bracelet or strap, but you can choose a Forstner bracelet also, right? Depending on the style that you want, right? And you just treat that as options available and let the consumer decide whichever they want, right? So you don't feel shortchanged. You actually have to pay more for the bracelets anyway, pay a bit less for the strap, but you make a conscious decision. I think Baltic does the same thing. You buy it on a strap or a bracelet, it's a different price, right? I think if you have that, it does go a little bit to reduce perception on price, a little bit. And of course, you still have to take away the fact that the SD1 is not really there. But I think to your point, Tim, that's a very good one.
But so on that note, right, would that change anyone's perception if, let's say, both watch are equal, both comes with bracelet, and say, which one do you think would be a better value proposition that you'll be willing to pay more? I'm just curious.
To me, I think if it comes with both, I think that's fine, right? To me, I can view it as a skin diver active versus skin diver lifestyle, right? I think both model can coexist together, and if it's both the same and both available in bracelet, I think it's all right. I think there will be both separate audience that would cater to either, and I would say that pricing will be all right. I think the main thing that why the pricing is a little bit iffy at the moment is because one, it's more expensive, and one, lack of bracelet, and people are inevitably going to compare that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I second that statement as well. As I mentioned, I think it's targeting very different type of demographics. So I think the decision to buy one or the other is, at least in my view, primarily first of whether you want something that's more form and function, or something a bit more special bells and whistles. Yeah.
On that note, because I know, for example, Rene was talking about, he finds the value in the sandwich dial, because there's not many sandwich dial you can get at this price point. But similarly, you could say the very same thing for SD1. Which brand can you get for a sapphire bezel? So I'm just curious if Dietrich could put a premium to which one would they price higher? Would they price the sapphire bezel one higher? I mean, I understand the sapphire, the SD1 it's actually harder to make, right? I think Woody, you shared this. So I presume they will price the SD1 higher.
I would suggest that they do that also, because I think it was such, as James started off by saying, it's such a great value proposition as a sum of its parts, right? You've got so many different bells and whistles that normally a more prominent brand would probably charge the same price of the whole watch for every additional feature that you see here. I think if in a hypothetical world, I would go with the fact that the SD1 should be priced a lot more than what it was originally priced.
Yep, definitely. So that's why I was saying that the SD2 shouldn't be viewed that it should be cheaper rather than the SD1 was underpriced, right? I think what you get for the SD1 is very much a bonus lah, right? So that's why I say it's not really fair to compare it that way, because if you like that team you mentioned, right? For other brands, where can you get a sandwich dial at this price and so on? So I think it's at the current price point, SD2, it's reasonably priced, I would say.
Now, I guess the question that I have is, are Dietrich doing a good enough job in letting the people know that this is the feeling that they're supposed to get, right? We as watch nerds, we got to handle it. We have the privileges of putting it side by side. Then we realize these things, but do the general watch fans know this, right? I think that's one of the key things that I think it might be a problem for the brand.
So if for all your friends and families that don't know this, please share this podcast over to them right now. So we have a very in-depth analysis and breakdown and comparison between SD1 and SD2 and how they each are able to stand on their own. So yeah, feel free to share it to those people and that will help them make their decision.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like on a serious note, I personally think that they could probably do a little bit more. What exactly, I don't know. But at the moment, it feels like a little bit, how to say, lost in direction in terms of marketing it as a Skin Diver 1 and 2. Naturally, people will get a little bit confused and they think that 2 naturally should be better than 1 and so on, right? If it was a separate product all in all and doesn't use the name Skin Diver, I think they would be perfectly fine in that instance.
Or I think they can just, even though they can name it as SD1 and SD2, they can just coexist together and just continue production of SD1 as well, right? Just to give you more options. It's just like Explorer 1, Explorer 2, right? It's like two different things.
Fair enough. I mean, there is a reason why, as Woody mentioned as well, there's a reason why the Pelagos FXD was not called Pelagos 2, because it's a total separate product, right? So in this case, it somewhat feels like that as well. Yeah.
So I guess what we're saying is give it a chance. Try, if you have a way to get your hands on, I think you may change your mind as well. I think it's important to view it as what it is, right? What I will leave you with is the fact that I think it's a bit of, to Hans' point about the way it's marketed, I think there was a missed opportunity. But at the same time, I don't really want them to follow the path of our Mings of the world, where it's so much hype driven. And I think the next big one that's kind of doing the same thing is Furlan Murray. It's so much hype and everyone's latching on to it. That's marketing masterclass, by the way. All of them are doing that. I think if Dietrich had that same flair, none of us will be having second thoughts here, right? We probably would have psychologically picked up on it as well. But I think it's the fact that it's an honest brand trying to deliver an honest product, and it's genuinely an honestly good product. It's just that you got to give it a chance to see it for yourself and decide for yourself.
Yep, I think
that's definitely true.
Mm-hmm. I think to wrap up, I think to give it a try, that's something that we've always been advocating as well. Don't look at watch on the specs alone. Don't look at watch on YouTube reviews and stuff. Try to, I know it's hard, especially if it's an online purchase in this case, but if you can, through friends or family that owns it and stuff, try to get a look at it to form your own opinion. rather than basing on the specs itself. And to wrap it up as well, we feel that both products, I think all of us can agree on that. We both products stands on its own. It's very different, SD1 and SD2, and don't compare the price between either as well, because it's not really a fair comparison in that case. And if you really like the SD2, as what myself, Renee, and team mentioned as well, don't just get the SD1 because it's a quote unquote better deal, right? Get what you actually really like, based on what your initial opinion that was formed.
Yeah. And I have to say, I was also a little bit critical of the SD2 when I first saw the initial stuff. So yeah, definitely give it a try. And if someone does the research and come across podcasts like this, then I think it's immensely helpful, right, to help you guys see how it can work for the different type of demographics that I think is the key thing about these two watches today.
So yep. So to buy or to not buy, we'll leave it up to you. As mentioned, both are great product. I mean, if I think how to say, if any of this was given to us, but any one of us would be really happy to receive it, right? So that's how I would typically assess whether the product is good or not, right? So if it's I always do it this way, right? When someone say you don't like their product, I'll say, but if it's given to you for free, would you wear it? So if you would get it for free and you wear it, that means you don't really hate that product enough to what. So I think that is my personal test on it. And if any of these SD1 or SD2 were given to me, I will wear it happily. And I think both are amazing products for its price point. I think that is how I would conclude for this tool.
I don't think I could put it any better way.
All right. So I think we come to the end of this podcast, and I think another shout out to Marshall as well for arranging this, for getting us this watch, for giving us the in a way a first-hand experience of this. Thank you to Woody for supplying all these useful photos and B-roll that you see in the YouTube. Yeah. So if there are new watches, please hook us up as well. We're more than happy to help you provide an in-depth review and analysis of those watches. And if aside from that, if it's other brands and so on, we're happy to take on that as well. No shame.
Only if you guys are happy with non-biased review, because I think it's a good time to also say that this was not a sponsored review or anything like that.
Yep.
It's a loan to us to give an honest opinion, nothing more. We're not getting paid for this, right?
But if you do want the sponsors and pay us, we're more than happy to take that.
Sure, but still non-biased.
Yeah. All right. Any other closing words from the rest? Yeah.
I'm good.
All right. I think in that case, then we shall conclude the podcast for today. Thank you everyone from listening or watching, and we'll see you in the next one. All right.
Stay safe,
Bye.
everyone.
Right, bye.
Bye.